angle of repose. When material is loaded out from the toe of a pile, the slope is steepened. Removal of the material weakens the slope and may undercut the berm. In this condition, the edge of the pile is less stable and may not be capable of supporting both its own weight and the additional weight of the truck. Trucks should be prohibited from dumping material near the edge of a pile that has been loaded out and over-steepened. This has been identified as a common factor in many of the accidents that have occurred. So, the first defense against dump point accidents is to recognize the 3 danger signs and not attempt to dump where any of these conditions exist. This points out the importance of good examinations of dump point conditions. As indicated in Section 9304 of Parts 56 and 57 of the Code of Federal Regulations, prior to the start of dumping operations, and as ground conditions warrant, mine personnel must inspect the dump area for any indications that the dump point may not support the equipment. Note that once a truck is backing up to dump, the driver cannot necessarily determine whether the dump area is still safe. There could be cracks that are not easily seen from the truck. And while backing to dump, the driver can't tell whether the pile has been over-steepened or the berm undercut. For these reasons, you should examine the condition of the dump area before backing to dump. A good practice is to routinely observe the dump point on your approach, staying 1 truck length back from the edge. For truck-built stockpiles, the front-end loader operators, who load material from the pile, are often in the best position to know the condition of the dump area. They should notify truck drivers of dangerous conditions at the dump point and block access to such areas. Dumping material on a stockpile and reclaiming material from the toe of the pile need to be coordinated so that these 2 activities are not taking place in the same area. One way to prevent this hazard is for the front-end loader operator to first use enough loaded-out material to block the access ramp to the pile. This way, truck drivers will not be exposed to dumping near an over-steepened slope. Using a truck spotter is also an effective way to ensure that a driver is aware of any hazardous dump point conditions. So what do you do if a dump area has cracks, an inadequate berm, or has been loaded out? If there is any question as to the safety of the dump point, the recommended practice is to dump back from the edge of the pile. Then push the material over the edge, preferably with a track-mounted piece of equipment. A good safety rule is to dump 1 truck length back from a crack or a questionable edge area. Other options would be to dump in another area or at the base of the pile. Cracked or over-steepened areas should be corrected by flattening the slope. This can be done by carefully pushing material down from the top of the pile using a track-mounted piece of equipment. As larger haul trucks come into use, these trucks may need to dump short of the berm, even if the slope is not cracked or over-steepened, because their greater weight could cause the edge of the pile to fail. When dumping on a pile, there are other safety practices that you should follow. Wear your seat belt. Accident records show that the best way to avoid a serious or fatal injury in an accident is to stay in the cab with your seat belt fastened. Back toward the edge of a slope slowly and come to a stop gradually. An abrupt stop near the edge of a pile creates an additional force which can cause a marginally stable slope to collapse. Use the berm as a visual guide only, not as a bumper to help stop the truck. Back your truck perpendicular to the edge of the pile or at a slight angle so that the rear tires on the driver's side are leading. This keeps the rear tires opposite the driver from getting closer to the edge than intended. Keep the top of the pile sloped so that when a truck is backing up to dump, it is going up a slight grade. This gives the driver better vehicle control and provides good drainage for the dump area. And finally, make sure that you have adequate lighting for nighttime work. Remember that a common accident in the mining industry has been trucks going over the edge of piles. These accidents can be eliminated if operators do not attempt to dump where the pile is loaded out or where there are cracks or an inadequate berm. Another type of hazard that should always be considered around piles is the danger of equipment coming too close to power lines, especially as piles increase in area and height. Working at the toe of a pile can also be hazardous. In a stockpile, the material that is being loaded out has provided support to the slope. Removing the material weakens the slope and makes it more prone to slide. As an equipment operator removes more material, the point can be reached where a collapse of the side of the pile can endanger the operator or anyone working near the toe of the pile. Or the slope may be left so marginally stable that it could collapse later unexpectedly. As the height of the pile increases, this potential danger increases. Anyone who works near the toe of a pile, including contract truck drivers who are being loaded in this area, needs to be aware of these hazards and follow safe work practices. In loading from the pile, limit the height of oversteepened material so that if the slope collapses, it will not endanger the loader operator or others in the area. A good safety rule is that a loader should not work into the toe of a pile once the steepened portion is higher than the equipment's reach. This way, the quantity of material which could slide is limited, and the operator can safely trim steep or overhanging material. Section 9314 of Parts 56 and 57 of the Federal Regulations require that stockpile faces shall be trimmed to prevent hazards to persons. If the loader cannot safely trim the pile, material should be carefully pushed down from the top of the pile, preferably using a track-mounted piece of equipment, to flatten the slope back at least to its angle of repose. When working at the toe of a pile, keep the loader perpendicular to the slope. This helps keep the operator's compartment back away from any potential slides. Because a slope that is too steep can fail unexpectedly, equipment operators and contractors need to be instructed not to position themselves between their equipment and the pile, or any place where they may be engulfed by sliding material. Remember, slopes get less stable and more prone to sliding with every bucket of material that is removed. The weather can affect the working conditions at piles. When it rains, the slope material absorbs moisture and becomes heavier, or a portion of the pile may become saturated. These conditions make the material more prone to slide. During freezing weather, ice binds the material together, allowing it to stand at steep slopes or to form overhangs. But as thawing occurs, the temporary strength is lost and the material can collapse without warning. During drier weather, dust can become a problem at stockpiles. Controlling dust by using water sprays prevents visibility problems and benefits the local environment as well. This video has illustrated some of the hazards involved in dumping and loading materials and has described the type of safety precautions that need to be taken. It's important that mine personnel, new employees, and contract haulers be made aware of worksite rules, loadout procedures, traffic controls, and communication methods. They must also be trained to recognize potential hazards and use safe work practices. The safe operation of mobile equipment at dump and loadout points is largely dependent upon the training, skill, and experience of the equipment operators. In the final analysis, safety is the responsibility of every employee, equipment operator, and mine management. It is only with the active participation and cooperation of everyone involved that the occurrence of these types of accidents can be reduced or eliminated, and a safe work environment can be ensured.